Hi, this is Roman, and today we're going to be going over Unit 8 on conditional probability, Day 4, Playing with Probability, Part 2, with a focus question of how can we use a sample space to calculate probability. So today I'm going to be emphasizing slide 11, using the spinner activity here, and the two questions in the exploration activity are, what is the probability of the spinner landing on the section labeled B? And to explain your reasoning for that. And then the following question is, which is greater, P of Y or G, or P of not Y, not G, where P stands for probability of, and to explain or show reasoning for that. So in this activity, I'm going to be utilizing Google Docs, and I will be sharing this resource. So the first thing that I would do is have students engage in a Geogebra activity where they actually get to play around with the probability of this experimental spinner. So as students spin, they'll see what color this spinner lands on, right? And they'll also see a frequency table on the bottom, which is a great way to reinforce this topic that was recently taught. So they could really analyze as they keep going here how the probabilities are adding up to 1 each time we spin this wheel. And as we keep going to get the full 10 trials here, we'll see that the probabilities for the 10 trials keep changing, but in the end, they are all going to add up to 1, which is a great way to reinforce that the sum of probabilities should equal 1. So I've changed the question to reflect this this tool here from Geogebra, and I'm using colors instead of letters because this tool has colors. So the first thing I would focus on is just the noticing and wondering activity. And as a teacher, ideas that we want to hit upon is what portion does the blue represent and why? And another question might be, what's the sample space of this event of spinning this wheel? As students come with these noticings and wonderings and really push for a wondering that might not be able to be answered here, the next thing that I would do is ask students to express the probability of the spinner landing on each of the following sections. And I have the color in one column and the probability in another column. So this graphic's also going to allow to reinforce that idea of the sum of probabilities should equal 1 in this right-hand column. And that was really reinforced in the use of this Geogebra activity and this link right here. So students might have some trouble with calculating these probabilities, so I have a link here to our handy Desmos Calculator. So for example, let's say students are able to see that the blue and green are cut into 4s, and for purple here, that would be 1/2 of whatever the blue or green would be. So we could utilize our Desmos Calculator here, and students can right away, click this conversion to a fraction and get the 1/8. One more key tool here that maybe you're not familiar with is that we do have math functions in Google Docs. So if I click insert here and I click equation, I'm just going to go to my fractions, which I could just see in A over B, and I would just write 1 followed by 8 in our denominator. Now, I will say when using fractions in Google Docs, they do appear very tiny. So stay cognizant of that and maybe just increase your font a little bit so it's legible. More readable than legible. Following this activity, right, we do want to reinforce that all these probabilities are going to add up to 1. So in this case, we will probably have to do a little bit of algebra and arithmetic. And if you want to stay away from that, you could reinforce it by, again, having them use that Desmos scientific calculator. The following activity would be to explain their reasoning, just like set up in the Teach Hub lesson. And you'd want to use that to guide some discourse and address misconceptions that are revealed in the student writing. So following this, I'm getting to the part B question here. Part A was the first one. Which is greater, the probability of blue or green, or the probability of not blue or not green, and to explain the reasoning. So similar to the question in the Teach Hub lesson, the only difference I did was I color coordinated so they could take a look at the link from GeoGebra and maybe continue to play around with the probability as they come to their answer. Now, one possible scaffold for this activity and another use of Google Docs is I'm going to take this picture and I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to insert a drawing. So if I go to insert and I click drawing and I go to new, I can insert this drawing, and I'm going to click two options here. And then from here, I'm going to ask students to shade in blue or green. And as my second option, with a text box, I'm going to ask students to shade in not blue and not green. So not blue and not green. Right, so now as I have this option, I'm going to press save and close. If you're doing this with students and you're sharing this Google Doc, once they double click, they have the opportunity to manipulate this similar like you would in GeoGebra. So in this case, students would click this line right here, and they're going to go to scribble. And for example, if I say shade in blue or green, right, I could shade in blue or green. I really saw that really didn't help us there. So I want to go back to scribble and see if we can get a good shading on blue. And now I see I have a black color. I might want to use white. White would be really more clear here. So I have blue or green. And then if I want not blue and not green, I could also shade that, right? And as students shade that, now you set that foundation for this question on which one is greater, the probability of blue or green, or the probability of not blue, not green. And you could really ask students why they shaded the two spinners the way they did in coming to the conclusion for B. So I hope this was helpful.